on my mind.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of The Boxing Show with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, we will be looking forward to this weekend's double header, Haney versus Prograis and Billam-Smith versus Mateusz Masternak. And I am joined by the usual twosome of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke, who are both doing very well today because it's the second time we filmed and we're behind. So we're going to get on with things, guys.
No, we're not. You said the same thing every start of every show.
I know, it's laziness and bored. I'm not very inventive.
That's fair. I thought, no, I like that. I'm on the same page. I think get lazy and boring.
Just get that straight out there. Very lazy, very bored.
It's all about consistency, isn't it?
It gets sort of like, people say like about like having like an intro type. Just
get into it.
Just get on with it. And every time we try and do something a bit different, he tells me off anyway.
You should say, "Hi, I'm Rob Tebbutt. Welcome to Rob Tebbutt." It's like that Radio Raheem fella.
Yeah.
Just say your name all the time. I don't
ever
else.
want to be like that Radio Raheem fella. But anyway, let's move on. Hi, Radio. But anyway,
Radio.
gonna go.
It's got a bit spicy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all right. We've been here for too long anyway.
Well, the mock.
But anyway, let's get started. I don't know how should we go. How should we go about this week? We usually do the UK stuff first because it's usually on.
No, let's do Haney and Prograis.
Let's do Haney and Prograis first. Okay, right. So the WBC Super Lightweight Championship of the World is at stake this weekend in LA. Andy, going to come to you because you're the most LA man in this room at the minute. Great fight.
Sure what the metrics are.
No, I don't know either.
But
just sounded like something to say. Great fight between Devin Haney and Regis Prograis. Haney, of course, the now former undisputed lightweight champion, has relinquished all of his belts and looks to become a two-weight world champion against Regis Prograis, who has been there, seen it, and done it at super lightweight.
Indeed, it's a really, really good fight, and I do get the sense from the build-up and how visible it's been for a few weeks now that there's some real interest in this, and it's generated some traction, which is a good thing because, you know, as much of that as we can get in boxing, anything that kind of spills out of our kind of lane and into the general sporting freeway is a great thing. So I feel like it has kind of done that. And hopefully during the course of the week it'll do that even more. But you look at the matchup and it is just a really, really good matchup because Haney stepping up to super lightweight is something we always knew was coming. I'm glad he's done it. He literally had done everything he could do at lightweight and he's done it at an incredibly young age. Prograis, I feel like, is somebody who, courtesy of that defeat against Josh Taylor in what was an absolutely brilliant fight and a close fight, things stagnated a bit for him after that. For a combination of reasons, some fights fell through, but he was kind of waiting, wasn't he, to get himself back on the big stage and really reignite his career. And it did take a while, and he had to stick at it. But he's done it, and this is exactly the kind of fight that he's been waiting for since we saw him against Taylor. And I think he belongs on that stage. I think he's a really, really good fighter. I think he's good for the sport. He's got a great backstory, all that kind of stuff. And for all of those reasons, I just think there's so much to like about this. And I also think it's a difficult fight to call. It is a difficult fight to call. Haney, when you look at the way he's gone about his career and starting so young and turning pro in Mexico and everybody chasing after him and they held their ground on signing deals and all that kind of stuff, you know, he's very, very impressive. I still don't really know how much of a measuring stick we have for exactly how good he is, which might sound a bit strange because he's beaten Vasily Lomachenko. I don't think he did. I think Lomachenko won that fight, but it wasn't like...
It was a very close fight.
It was a close fight. It was a close fight in which he showed himself to be a very good fighter, but I don't feel like that showed me that he will definitely beat Regis Prograis, for example.
What it does show you, his career, is he has the mental aptitude.
Absolutely, yeah.
To compete against anybody, because going to Australia twice, I know you go for the money, but he still went there. To be Cambosos, and quite comfortably twice. Let's be honest.
He's got an elite mentality, hasn't he? Definitely.
See, I was never sold on him massively. I thought he was good, and they were all like going crazy about him. And I thought, well, he's really basic, which I'm surprised at, because I love the basics. Don't I always go do the basics perfect, but I thought he just does the basics. Doesn't do much more than that. But it's served him so well, especially at lightweight, because he's such, his shoulders are wider than Lomachenko is tall if he sat on his side. And you can make sure, big long arms, and he uses that jab really well, and he can just keep you there. You keep you there all night long. Moving up in weight, he's not going to have that advantage, I think. But no, I don't think Prograis is massively tall himself, is he? So,
no, he's thick set, but he's not. He doesn't have a big frame for the weight.
So you would tend to think that Haney should and could do the job with the jab, and I think being disciplined against someone like Prograis is very important, because he can draw you into fights, because wherever he hits you, he hurts you, or you feel it. So you feel that need to either run away, and that's no good, because you can't win a fight doing that, or to fire back, and that's what he wants you to do. He wants you to fire back, because he has very extremely heavy hands. So he wants you there, and then you have to be innately tough like Josh Taylor to cope with that, and very busy as well. And I think Haney's tough, but I think that's not the fight he needs. I think he can dictate it from his jab. I think if we're going from Prograis' last fight against Zorilla, who he followed around the ring, then this is an easy night for Devin Haney on that showing. But that's not the fight we're going to get against Prograis. There's a worry though. Well, you were talking about, after the Josh Taylor fight, which was, I had Josh Taylor like quite a few points ahead, but it was a really, really close fight. And the guy was sat next to, he thought that Prograis won the fight. So it was that sort of fight, wasn't it? You see in each round. But that was even though he in defeat, it was such a good fight, and at the highest level, that was a launch pad for him. And it never happened. I think managerial things and other stuff on it. And then you thought, and that might be a worry now, that he's wasted some of the best years of his career, sat on the bench, waiting for those big fights, or whatever the reasons are. His fault or not, I don't know, and I don't care. Just the fact is, he might have wasted some of his best years to floating round. And if that's the case, then again, with the speed and again, I said the concentration and discipline that Haney has, that's going to be a problem for him. But I do think we are going to see a guy that early on in Prograis' career, even though he would walk onto a few shots, and he brings his back foot like squares out quite often, because he wants to bring all that power into the shot. But he did close the gap quicker than he did against Zorilla. So I think we're going to see that Prograis. So I think it's going to be, first of all, when I first heard of the fight, and I'm not going to even talk now, I honestly thought like it was going to be a boring fight if Haney wins, because he'll just go jab, move, 1-2 move, 1-2 move, and he won't get anywhere near. He won't let him get anywhere near him. But I think he'll try and do that, because he has to try and do that. But I genuinely think that Prograis will close the gap.
How and why, and what do you think? What do you anticipate Prograis doing differently than he didn't do against Danielito?
But I think he'll know. It's a mindset. That's a real fight. That's like a mark time fight where he knows he can win. So even though you go into, that's your own fault for doing that. But I mean, you go into that fight with a view of staying safe for the next one. So I'll get him. But he's not guaranteed. He's just thinking, when I hit him, I'm going to get him, because they're below your level. But that doesn't mean they're not tough. And he found that out. But he won't believe. He'll believe that he can knock Haney out. But he'll be well aware it might not take just one assault. He might have a sustained attack, constant round after round of pressure. So he's going to start faster and be more aggressive and slide in closer and commit. With that, there's a chance he's going to get outboxed, and I think he will get outboxed for big portions of the fight. But I think his will to win will get him in the fight.
We've seen Haney in recent memory box two southpaws, as I mentioned, obviously Vasily Lomachenko, also boxed Jojo Diaz, both of which had success. I mean, I think we all we're all on the same page of Haney Lomachenko was a very close fight that we all had Lomachenko winning. Yeah. How much do we take from those bouts against southpaws? How different is Regis Prograis to certainly a Vasily Lomachenko?
You don't. They're totally different, but the shot the Prograis' best shot is that left hand over the top. because he brings that front foot really in close and he commits with it. And that's the shot that you can hit Haney with the most, actually. I think that's the shot, that's the best shot to throw. That shot to throw is a stupid shot because it's like almost like once you throw it, once that overhand right, overhand left for him, but I can't do that. Once he gets over here, once the shot gets here and you're committing, your head, to get the weight, you got to transfer your head to this side of the body to get the weight transference. If you do it correctly for all power. So once you do that, the rest of the punch is blind. Don't know where it's going. You've committed to the attack, if that makes sense. So once you do that, there's a portion of that punch, the process, where you don't see it land. You just hopefully feel it, so there's a worry there. You do that, if they're clever enough to make you miss, you could be over the front foot. You're in trouble. You're a free target to hit. But he's so ferocious when he throws it that most opponents just want to back away from it. He used to do it so well, and without the view to hit you. Chris Eubank Senior.
Yeah, he used to throw a big winding
from miles away, but they knew he had so much power. They just throw it, he used to do that for breathing space. But Prograis does it with the view of knocking you out because he commits to it, and I think that's the shot he can hurt Haney with. So I can see Haney going to throw the right hand because Haney's very square shoulders. So I know I say about this movement being every punch from the hips and the shoulders, keep your shoulders square. That's where you should learn how to throw punches, and then as you get better, you start rolling your shoulders with it. But that's how you learn it. Haney's very much like that. But with that, you turn your body correct. It squares you up slightly for the shot. To get the nice long right hand, you've got to be square a bit. For a southpaw, if you can get his foot on the outside and slide in, then that shot over the top is a real... You've got a big target to hit, and Haney's got a huge head. No offence, Devin. But he's got a big head, haven't he? It's a big target. So that's a worry for him. But ultimately, I think that that's what we just said it because I've been talking for so long. All alluded to, but I think Haney will find a way to win. I fancy him to win the fight. Actually, I think he's really disciplined. I think he showed that against Kambosos, who was maybe slower of foot than you'd like, or not one-dimensional, but quite easy to read. I think, but he still had to stay disciplined against a guy who won't stop trying. So yeah, I think it's a great fight. First of all, it's going to be. I thought it was going to be a boring fight, but the more I look into it, I think it catches fire. Because I think Haney's tough. Do you think Haney's tough?
Yeah, I think he probably is.
Yeah, I think he is tough.
I mean,
he hasn't been in the trenches yet,
but
I'm
strictly speaking,
that he can do it.
But he's had little pockets of getting hurt, haven't he?
He got buzzed by Linares. But I mean, against Lomachenko, I thought Lomachenko won the fight, but I was very impressed with how comfortable Haney was at holding his feet. But the question I guess that I have, which is one of the reasons I mentioned that to you, is you're holding your feet against a natural 126, 130 rather than a guy at 140 and Regis Prograis who punches like a welterweight, doesn't he? So it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult to see him being as content to stay in the pocket with Prograis as he was with Lomachenko. Lomachenko's obviously wonderfully offensive and punches in combination.
You're comfortable.
But it's not that lights out power. You see the left hand that Prograis stopped Zepeda with, the left hand that he knocked over Tyrone McKenna with. They're big shots, and they're not a big shot from a guy who's 126, 130.
And it's very often the same shot, isn't it? He's heavy-handed, he is, and he's good. But Haney's got to get it right. He can't just 1-2 move. Because if Prograis is right on his game and he is fresh, and there's not a guarantee that he is, then he'll just keep stealing your space. Before you know it, then you're in the corner. You got to get some really nifty footwork to get out of the way from a guy who's because he's a southpaw. He's going to make you move. He's going to make you move to your right. He's going to slide across this way and make you go that way. Make you go onto this shot, and that's what you don't want to do with Prograis. So you got to get the balance right. So you got to be brave, and I think he is brave, Haney, to hold your feet enough to get enough weight beyond the shots, to not worry about hurting him. The secret of beating Prograis, unless you got a tremendous Josh Taylor work rate and you're just massively tough and an absolute lunatic, is which he says that's Josh Taylor, isn't it? But then all of that's Josh Taylor, is to be brave enough to hold your feet, to hit and take that educated risk. But as soon as you do it, you got to move. Whatever happens, even if he misses or doesn't hit you or doesn't throw, you can't. If you stay there too long, you just think you're chancing your arm too much. I think you got to just be really disciplined with what you're going to do. Don't be greedy with anything you do. I think that's for Haney, and I think Haney's quite like that. Haney be quite boring, actually. Let's be honest, he can be if he wants to be, because he has the reach advantage over everybody, and even against Prograis, he'll have a massive reach advantage. His arms are longer than any man I know. Like it's him and Deontay Wilder, and that's a close call. Yeah, his reaches and he uses it to his huge advantage. Yeah. So I think he will catch fire for a little while and I think at one point Haney gets caught, and I think he shows his grit and fires back. But ultimately, I think his discipline and discipline and feet, constantly moving every time he throws a punch, will cause a problem for Prograis, especially Prograis this time of his life. Is he 33?
He's in mid-30s.
Yeah, 34 then.
I think he might even be a bit older than that. Just a quick little time here. He is...
Don't say do it sometimes.
34.
34,
yeah. So yeah, he's certainly not young anymore. But yeah, you know, I mean, looks. I don't think I've ever seen Regis Prograis looking massively out of shape or anything. So I think he keeps himself in decent nick.
No, it's that when you get a bit older, and he's not past his sell by there. I'm not saying that at all. But when you get, it's that acceleration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is what I thought he did lack a little bit in that Zorilla fight. Well, I do agree with you. It was more mental than anything. But again, closing the distance, which is why I had the initial thought of you of. Initially, I was thinking, Haney by unanimous decision, which could still be the case. But I don't know if the closer the fight comes, we all manage to hook ourselves into it being a great fight. Andy, going to come to you. We've discussed, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, this kind of new wave of talent really over the last 3 or 4 years, and we've observed them from kind of prospect level up to contender. And now you've got undisputed champions, 2-weight world champions, unified champions. Haney has jumped up to 140. He's going for Regis Prograis. There's an argument that you could make that he's the number one in the division. People will say Mateusz and obviously Lopez after beating Josh Taylor. But it's a very, very legitimate world champion that Devin Haney is immediately sought out at 140 pounds. I think over the course of the years, we've all kind of, I don't want to say undersold him, but he's kind of been somebody who, the words that we tend to use with him is, disciplined, as we mentioned there, like good all-rounder, solid, that sort of thing. Do you think he maybe is a bit underrated, Haney? Do you think maybe not we, but the collective we of the boxing audience, which of course we all speak for, do you think that we undersell him a little bit? Does he deserve more credit for the work that he's done in his career so far and ultimately this challenge?
I think he probably does. I just previously didn't give him all that much credit when I said that I find it difficult to work out exactly how good he is. But having said that, you look at what he has done, and if somebody manages to win fights and you feel like you don't know how good they are, it's because they haven't really been pushed in the way that you might like to have seen them pushed, because we all love to see somebody in a great tear up at stages where they have to dig deep and take it to the trenches and all that kind of stuff, because we want to know whether they can do that or not. And until we see them do it, we wonder whether they can. And boxing being what it is, still this very kind of visceral sport, that's what as fans we prize as much as, maybe more than anything else. But it's to a fighter's credit if they've managed to become undisputed in a weight division without really having to go there. I feel like he will have to go there against Prograis. I think Prograis will take him there, and that's why I've got high hopes. I've got high hopes for the fight. But yeah, I think you're probably right. I think maybe he hasn't been given enough credit. And also because of the outcry of the Lomachenko fight, it was close. I felt it was similar to the first fight between Golovkin and Canelo in that I felt like Golovkin won that fight, but it was still a really good fight. So maybe he didn't get enough credit for the Lomachenko performance, regardless of what people felt about the result, as he should have got. But he's stepping up to a division now, which is a great division, isn't it, still? And there's some brilliant fights out there. And if he beats Prograis, then maybe he'll get more credit for that than anything he's done so far, because it is taking him into a division where people punch harder, basically. And I feel like he will have no choice but to, in stages at times, hold his feet and trade more than he has before. And that's absolutely what I want to see.
Barry, we've heard over the last probably about 3 or 4 years that Haney was going to have one more at lightweight, one more at lightweight, one more at lightweight. Now he is eventually up here at 140 pounds, already talking about 147 pounds and potentially moving up after this fight and fighting Mario Barrios. How much can we read into that, and how much do you anticipate, if at all, the move up in weight, particularly when he gets to 147 and some of those natural advantages that he had over the 135 guys start to dissipate?
I always think boxers should, theoretically, I use that word quite a lot, I don't know what it means, but should move up in weight easier than punchers or guys who use physical strength, because then that advantage of being physically stronger doesn't work against bigger guys, because they're obviously bigger guys. But there's a worry that reach that he has, that becomes less and less. The reach advantage he has, his reach does become less. His arms out the string as he gets but no, the advantage becomes less and less, of course, and then all of a sudden then what was so easy for you landing the jab, you're being matched by a jab like Barrios, a nice long tall fighter. They might have the same, they might be jab for jab. All of a sudden it's a harder fight for him against a guy who he seems to be technically much better than. This is good. There's still really good money. Oh, this like I gotta be like a 4-weight world champion, or I'm rubbish. That's what it seems to be nowadays. It gets on my tits a little bit. I mean, it's a great achievement to do it, but it's not as great as it used to be, because there's more opportunities for it. Like, it's not as great to be a world champion as it used to be, because there's more opportunity for all of us since my generation and on. So, it was still a big achievement, of course, especially mine. Whew, unbelievable. And but I just think that there's big fights at his weight. Tremendously big fights, and if you can be around that, and if you can get this way, if you can be Prograis, which is not a given, then like he is a big name in that division. And there are big fighters. There's Ryan Garcia, there's Tank Davis. I'm sure I don't know what weight he is actually. He's lightweight, light welterweight, or whatever it is, super lightweight, whatever he is. Teofimo Lopez, who arguably is the number one, because he beat the number one. Though I understand why. I've seen on DAZN Chris Mannix's pound for pound of the top 10 of super lightweights, he had Prograis number one, because he'd been in that division longer. No, I didn't agree with him, but I understand there's a reason behind it. As long as you understand the reason behind it, you can't really argue. Yeah. No, you can't be. You
don't have to agree with it.
You haven't got the arse over it. Yeah, I think I understood that, and DAZN's a brilliant platform. But seriously, it's just like, cause I understand Prograis being a career there, where Lopez just beat the one guy, but he beat the guy. So, but there's big money fights for him there. There's bigger money fights for him that way than the weight above, because Crawford's gone, I think.
I mean,
more or less.
Yeah.
And he's not going to box him anyway. There's no money in him for that.
But does that in its own way present opportunities for a Devin Haney? Is there a better time to move into 147? But
for what? Just to see another champion. But I mean, he's been a champion. I was going back to. Also,
just. He looks as though he'll end up at 54 anyway.
Well, he
Haney.
Might,
so if you're going to jump now,
but if you've just got, and in making 140 is a struggle.
Yeah, clearly.
In making 147 is going to be always it's a struggle. But I mean, if he can stay this weight for 2 years, 18 months, and get 3 fights, which is never going to happen in this generation. But I mean, they're 3 big fights. So say he beats Prograis. Just say he gets Lopez, just say he beats him, and that's I fancy Lopez actually, but it depends on what Lopez turns up. But then he gets Ryan Garcia. There's no bigger fight for him financially.
Yeah.
I was go back to what you said about you saying about the credit. I think the main reason he didn't get his credit is because he didn't win the WBC. He didn't win the title in the ring.
Yeah, that's true.
That first time, it started from there. For us all, and it wasn't his fault, bless him.
No,
but it was ludicrous. It was a ludicrous thing to happen. Lomachenko was clean number one. They made him the
franchise champion.
Oh, yeah. What does that mean? Like, they just make things up, don't they? I mean, I make loads of things up, but it doesn't affect no one's life.
But yeah, but he was interim champion.
Email champion. People call him email champion. Yeah. But it's not his fault. The kid's like, what's he supposed to say? No, I don't want that.
And then really, Lopez was. When Kambosos beat Lopez, that was for the
all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's for Haney. I mean, maybe
when Lopez beat Lomachenko, I mean, that was for it all. And then when Kambosos beat Lopez,
but then Lopez, Haney had to double down saying he was the champion.
That's it.
He had to say that.
And
he made himself look like an
idiot.
I think
perhaps that's fed into this way of underrating Haney and maybe not being as kind of high on him, I suppose, as we have with some other fighters over the years, is because as part of that kind of Haney bubble, I suppose, that has been tossed around there. The interim champion, the email champion, all of that. Then he has the close fight with Vasily Lomachenko. Okay, he beats George Kambosos, but But how good was Kambosos, and did he just get Lopez on the right night?
He beat the man who beat the man, but didn't beat the man.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I lost myself.
So I know what you meant. and so I think those couple of, or more than a couple of instances, have kind of contributed, I think, to Haney, and I've been one of them.
And he's not always a fan-friendly fighter.
No. And
well.
But he's kind of, both he and Shakur Stevenson, particularly Shakur Stevenson, it's obviously a very hot topic at the moment with him. And we've mentioned it previously about guys who are not willing to put themselves in harm's way unless they need to. Yeah. And if they can win without getting hit, then they're going to win without getting hit, and then they'll pick up the money, pick up the belt, and then on to the next one.
They're looking at Mayweather. Right, Mayweather, no, and for leaving boxing in a safe place, then that's Mayweather's the way to go for it. But great fighters have to do great things. Mayweather became a great fighter because he was a great fighter. But he earned all that money being a great fighter. They're unfortunate anyway. What am I on about? But I mean, his antics outside the ring, or the perception of his antics outside the ring, made him a global name. But you have to be all other fighters had to do it in the ring. Really, that's the truth. Their personalities and all the rest of it help, but they have to be in great fights. Great fighters do that. Take that educated risk, sometimes not so educated risk, to do things that, say, someone like me, like get off the floor and knock a guy out with the next punch. That's the stupidest thing to do. It's the best thing to do. It's what makes a fighter great sometimes in big fights. But the first thing you should do is be safe. So I'm getting off the floor, and the first I'm thinking is, make sure my head's clear, make sure I'm okay. But great fighters are thinking, wait till he walks in now. I'm gonna grab him. I'm gonna whack him. As soon as they come at me, I'm gonna whack him. I gotta fire back. I gotta show them who I am.
Yeah, they have to answer back, don't they?
See, but I'm thinking about what all sensible people were thinking. This just takes slow down a minute. Let's just try and quell their fire. But that don't work clearly, because the one time I was in peril, I couldn't stop the guy. I should have went right at him maybe and go down your shield, shit. But great fighters do great things to become great fighters, and he hasn't shown that quality, and people fall in love with that. People
they do, yeah. That's exactly it, isn't it? That's what fans really want. You become more beloved by the fans, but like you say, some fighters, they're not going to do that unless they absolutely have to do it, which is a sensible attitude. But you look at somebody like Mayweather, and if he had kind of done what fans were demanding or wanted him to do, which was step up too far in weight, had a war against someone and lost because of size, but been incredibly brave and got off the floor, people would love him more than they do now.
Yeah.
But he retired unbeaten. So,
Yeah. You can't argue with all the things that they're trying to do is the right thing to do. But for fans of the sport, who we shouldn't really care about, it's horrible to say this, it is horrible to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, and I'm an ex-boxer. We shouldn't care about what happens to the fighter once he retires. No, we just it's fucking awful saying it, really. We should care about everyone, but I mean, we want to see entertaining fights. That's the truth, and we want to and most people want to see knockouts as well. I don't care about knockouts as much, but we want to see great fights. So, but if we're watching a fight with a view of how the guy, he's not going to be so good after his career, then we never see a great fight. I got to digress a bit here, like I never usually do. Todd Grisham in Saudi. Why do I do this now? In Saudi, when David Adley got stopped by Fabio Wardley, he came up to me and Addy, and he was fuming. He stopped it too early and all that, and he was stopped a tad early, but it was the right stoppage, I felt. So when we said that, he was screaming. He did say that, no, but he's all right. Because he was passionate about it. He's like, no, but like, and I'm going, mate, but the next punch knocks him out. And he had a valid argument. I didn't agree with him. I didn't know the way he shouted, but he was going like, but then we would never see any great fights. And he battled off a few great fights, like Bo and whatever, and Holyfield, and I go, yeah, I know that, but we're in a different time now, me. Like, and I sort of stopped it there because we just argued forever, and he's bigger than me. But like, I just thought, but then we know now the damages boxing can happen with it, and the whole society's different about. We're not as barbaric as we used to be. I don't think. We don't, because we see the effects boxing has. But also at the same time, you can't expect people to love you if you're not going to give them things to love.
No, that's true. I mean, with an example like that, what it always comes down to for me is, has anything happened in the fight up until that point to make you think that David Adelaide or whoever it might be is capable of turning this around? And the answer on that occasion was no.
But
so that was a good stoppage.
But Grisham's got a point where he's saying no.
He does have a point.
No, the sport it won't become the sport we love anymore if we're just stopping fights now, because we're pretty sure we know what's going to happen next few punches.
He does have a point.
Because you'll never get a Gatti Ward again. You'll never get a Castillo Corrales. You'll never see that again.
But it's a it always has been. It's different now, like you say. We are in a different time, but it has always been just that judgment call. I mean, I was watching the other day the end of Chavez against Meldrick Taylor. I was watching that, and you look at it and you just think, what a call from Richard Steele. And even if there were only 2 seconds left, I made him right.
Yeah.
Because Meldrick Taylor was utterly defenceless. He was on his feet, but if he'd let him go on one more punch, and God only knows what could have happened.
Oh, he was never the same after that again.
He was never the same anyway, and he wasn't prepared to take that chance with a fighter's health. And that's what referees are in there to do. So, yeah, I do see what he's saying, but that's why a good official is... And the responsible good corner is just so important, because some things we don't need to see.
And that's the whole reason why I don't think he hasn't got quite the love, because he's a clever, intelligent fighter who boxes smartly, does the right thing to win a fight, but it doesn't always adhere to the real hardcore box, or not the casual, the boxing fan who want to see, sometimes we know how good you are, but show us a little bit more to make us like super excited about watching you fight again.
Something that we actually spoke about, another 140-pounder recently, Jack Catterall, in a sense of, if you can do that at a certain level though, like if Haney can pitch a 12-0 shutout against Regis Prograis,
wow,
then that's different, isn't it? But
yeah.
I guess the issue at times has been with Haney is when those performances have come at a slightly low, and they're not, people like Jojo Diaz, Jorge Linares, they're good fighters and have been very good fighters at various different points.
They're all super featherweights. And,
yeah.
And, yeah.
But boxing's one of these, I'd say one of these sports, maybe entertainment is important in other sports, but much more so in boxing than anything else, isn't it? Show business with blood, as it's been described. You need to win and win well. People, they want to be entertained. Are we not entertained? It's that kind of thing. People demand that. In other sports, winning is enough, isn't it? Generally, winning is enough. But in boxing, if you want to be great, if you want to be beloved, then winning isn't enough by itself.
If you can't do it, like, I'll talk back to myself again. If you can only box one way, that's how you fight, and you can't do it. But when you see a fight, you think, I know he could do more, but he chose not to, or she chose not to. Then you start going, you could have done more there, but you didn't want to. And we're paying to watch this. I'm saying you could do more. Why not do more? And that was whole Jack Catterall thing. Yeah. He boxed the right fight, and he was safety fighting. And he didn't want to mess around with all his future plans. And it's still a good win against Linares, whoever old he is. It's irrelevant. But I mean, he could have done more, and that was my only issue with it. But apart from that, he boxed good, but he could have done more. And Haney at times could do more, but he's doing the sensible thing. But if you look at the fight and go, he can't do any more than he's doing, he boxed that way, he hasn't got no power like me. He can't be piling forward. Now what's the point? He can't do that. He's gonna lose a fight that he's winning. But it's not that for these fighters. You think you could do more and still win the fight as comfortable, or almost as comfortable, just taking a little bit more of a slight more risk. But the risk is the whole thing that we fall in love with.
At some point as well, things can happen that can cause a fighter to just do the wrong thing. You think about, like, Tim Bradley's always a great example, isn't he, against Ruslan Provodnikov. Some people questioned him, Bradley, didn't they? They questioned whether he could have that kind of fight. They questioned, the Pacquiao situation and all of that. And he just deliberately chose to fight the wrong fight and play Provodnikov in his own game, because he wanted to show everybody that he could do it. And he won, but it had consequences.
Yeah.
So people can get sucked into doing that. Their pride, their ego will take them there, because you have to have an enormous amount of pride and ego to be a fighter in the first place. And the temptation to do that, I'd imagine, would be big if you feel like it's in there, that it's inside you, if people are constantly questioning your capacity to do it. And it actually takes a lot of resolution and a lot of discipline to not do it, really. To not kind of go there and give in to the mob, of give in to us and what we want to see. I feel like Haney is that guy. I feel like he will go there if he realises there is no other way. Otherwise, he won't. And that, it's very difficult to argue with that, really.
Yeah, it's a different kind of admiration that you can take.
Yeah, it is.
Like that, yeah.
It is.
I love watching a skillful fight. When you see a fighter like dissect the fight, that's amazing. That's lovely to watch. We all love that. But the people who don't always watch boxing, we just want to watch this is a big fight. If it's being built, they want to see more. And if you can't give more, like say the game, you can't give more, that's fine. You're doing all you can do. But if you can, then it may be your duty. If you can cope with people like saying these things, like with slagging Haney off, he's had a fantastic career. But if you're happy with that and you earn enough money from it, then you got to live with it. Maybe I don't care what people says about him. I don't think. Maybe he does. But he went through his career, didn't give a shit. It looked like, I'm going to do it this way. I'm earning absolute fortunes, more than any other fighter ever I'm earning. And I'm doing it my way, and my way is the right way. And who can argue that it's not? So when people go, oh yeah, but I'd rather watch so-and-so fight because they're in a better fight. He's going, yeah, but look at the state on him, and he's earned like a tenth of what I've earned.
The absolute genius of Mayweather was that he was able to generate the amount of money he did fighting the way that he did. I mean, it's mind-blowing, really, isn't it? Because it shouldn't really be possible.
No.
Because as Barry said, to make that money, you are pulling in even just floating sports fans.
Not even sports fans.
Not even sports fans. So
that's
it
the level
shouldn't. Shouldn't have been possible. It just shouldn't have been possible. And I wonder, had it not been possible, and he'd realised, all right, well, the only way for me to make the really big money is to take more risks and take more punishment. Whether he would have done it,
I think so.
I think he would have done it.
Yeah, but would he have remained unbeaten?
No, probably not.
No,
throwing caution to the wind and fighting an Antonio Margarito instead of Carlos Baldemir.
Yeah, there could be very close calls in his career, Mayweather. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
This is not about Mayweather. But
No.
It's an interesting. Yeah,
but
it's interesting. He's that guy, isn't
and it's
he?
something that we've discussed.
And like you say, there's these guys they're in that mould, aren't they?
There's an argument. No fighter's undefeated. Actually, when you look at everyone's career. I'm not going to mention his name, but I'm with him on Wednesday. We're doing a live show with BBC on Wednesday. Me and my mate Joe. But but no, he had a couple of close calls.
Yeah, Robin Reed
was pretty close. I thought he won. He was close enough to argue. If he wouldn't have got, I wouldn't have cried.
I thought he lost to Hopkins.
No, well that's because
at the time.
But at the time, though, you were still in school.
What year was that?
2017. You shouldn't.
I just left.
You were skinny. You wanted to be an actor then.
I was skinny. I was just skinny.
Couldn't get a job on Hollyoaks.
Maybe now. I reckon. Anyway,
but I think Haney's a really good fighter. This is a good weight division for him, and if he can get a good win against Prograis, which is a really hard ask for him, but I think he will. This is the weight division he should stay in. I think this is the weight division where he can be in exciting fights. You can get everything you want to. You can earn more money in this weight division. You can be in exciting fights. You can get the love of the fan.
Yeah, and there's no logjam with the titles. They're in the hands of different people, aren't they? And there's some entertaining options. Whereas at welterweight, we know what's happening there. There's a big blockage.
Do you anticipate, Barry? A lot of the over the last, it's been since 2019. Haney's been talking about moving up, and this is now the first time that he's done that. There seems to be this kind of, I don't know about acceptance, but there seems to be this kind of theory, is the word, that him moving up in weight should give him a little bit more punching power or make him a little bit more physically imposing. No, not necessarily saying it's going to turn him into a Gerald McClellan, but not having to kill himself to make the weight, because he is, if you've been around him, he's a massive guy for lightweight. It's freakish. His waist is tiny. But
I said his head's a stone.
But whether or not he's just got a normal sized head and he shrunk his body down to such genuinely. Do you anticipate, or what do you anticipate the effects on his athleticism being at Old? He's still growing as well. He's very young.
It's one of those things, because he's not a guy who dines out on strength, doesn't need strength to be effective as much, really. So I don't know if it'll affect his performance. I don't think it can only enhance his performance, but I don't think it's an issue. It's not like moving up in weight can be a problem, because you might be physically better, but they're still bigger and stronger. Yeah. They're coming down from bigger weights, and if they get it right, if they make the weight right, come fight night, what title's this? WBC. Okay, they got no limit on weight, have they?
Not after the fight. They have check weights before the fight.
So Haney might put on weight, but Prograis might be, God knows what he'll be. Who knows what he'll be? But so there's an issue there. You're up against a bigger guy. You might feel bigger and better, but he's bigger and stronger as well. if he makes the weight sensibly. But then sometimes you can get the thing that he's had, and you're really struggling to make the weight, and then you've made the weight better, and you're more hydrated and all that. It can only help him sit down on his punches a bit more. So but it's more important that he just you got to focus on getting a bit more weight on your shots, but don't forget this. Don't lose anything from it. There, you got to keep that snap and the speed. The movements he's going to win fights always with his discipline. I say the same thing, but his speed and his movement and his boxing brain, which is pretty good. But the fact that he does the very simple things very good is what makes him most effective. My only worry for him is not the strength so much, though if they can get close, that might be an issue. If they can get close too quick continuously, Prograis can get on him, start bullying him around, he might have a problem. But I also think Haney ties you up very well. He's like Spider-Man, isn't he? So I think he'd be fine. I don't think this would be a massive issue. My only worry is that when he starts going up in weights, when he'll start losing that advantage of reach. That's when then you've got to start adjusting your judgment of distance. And if you can do that, you're fine. But if you can't, then you have to throw the jab different then, because you haven't coming back. You get caught coming back because you haven't got that luxury of being able to lean with it. But I don't think this fight's that issue at all. I think this only helps him, I think.
All right, before we move on, talk about one of the undercard fights. We mentioned earlier on about kind of, what were they called? The Four Kings, the Four Princes, the Four whatevers. A few years ago, Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, and Gervonta Davis. Where are we ranking them now? Okay, we've got 135, 140. Garcia just boxed at 143. Like, where are those guys in the kingdom? I suppose we've got Stevenson, Haney, Lopez, Davis. Garcia, he's already been beaten by Davis, so he's out. So let's go for the 4, because it's 4 kings and not 5.
Well, so we got again. You've got
Shakur Stevenson, 3-weight world champion.
Yeah,
Devin Haney.
I met him before.
Devin Haney.
Yeah.
Gervonta Davis, Teofimo Lopez.
It's tough. I mean,
they all have their own little claim to the throne, don't they?
Because you can argue that because Stevenson hasn't really boxed any breakout fights.
Oscar Valdez.
But it was a good. It was a good. That's a really good win. But
I'm tempted by Lopez. I'm
tempted by Gervonta.
Then lost to a guy who Haney stood on his head twice.
That's true. But he stepped up to super lightweight and beat the man, didn't he?
And then you think Gervonta Davis, and you go, but then you could go through his resume and go, what was it like? Because there's a guy, he's a multi-weight world champion as well, isn't he? So, as they all are pretty much. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think potentially, I'm still after his last performance. Stevenson wasn't great at all, was he? But I still think potentially he's the one who's going to be the biggest star of them all. I think
biggest star or most accomplished.
Most accomplished, yeah. Thank you, thanks. Most accomplished. So yeah, maybe Gervonta. I find it hard when you do this because it's like, do you go on potential, or do you go on right now, or do you go on past resume? How do you gauge it? Because then you're going on past resume, then Teofimo Lopez is arguably number 1 then, isn't he?
But then if you're Devin Haney, you go, well, he beat Lomachenko, so did I. People will argue, but whatever. I beat Kambosos twice, he beat him.
Yeah.
So that's it's all a very interesting...
There's always extenuating circumstances.
Then he's just come back and beat Josh Taylor. Then they say, but Josh Taylor really lost the thing.
Yeah.
It's never ending string, isn't it? Isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It is. So if we just based on right now, but then Stevenson's nowhere near their weight, though, is he?
He just boxed at 135. So he's in the same weight as Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, but Gervonta, he's not a lightweight anymore. He's not making lightweight again, is he?
Davis, I don't think there's any plans for him to box at 140. I don't think. No. Well, there could be. You never know with him. He could go to 147. You never know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's too small for lightweight, really, isn't he? But I just thought he was going to be I thought he was just going to stay at 140, and that was going to be where he was going to base himself.
He went down, didn't he, for Garcia. And then
that
still
was
136. Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was more for Garcia's benefit than Davis. Come on, I want answers.
I'm saying Lopez.
So okay, Lopez 1 for Andy.
And I understand that the logic doesn't really stand up, but it often doesn't.
Number 2.
I mean, Haney's been undisputed.
He's unbeaten as well.
Yeah.
Beat the guy who beat the number one twice.
Yeah, I'd have to. Well, but if I'm going to put Lopez first, then I've got to put Haney second, haven't I? I can't not.
Much, yeah.
Okay, so Lopez 1, Haney 2. And what they've done so far. Davis 3, Stevenson 4.
So I'm Davis, Stevenson, Lopez, Haney.
So yours is almost exactly the
other way
opposite.
around. Yeah.
I'm not.
We've got the same top two. We've got the same top two, just the other way around.
Actually, you got Davis.
I got Davis Stevenson.
You've got Davis number one.
Oh no, you got Davis as number 1. No, we have almost got. Yeah, they're almost exactly
the exact opposite. I'll go for Davis at number 1 as well. I think if they all boxed each other in a 4-way tournament now, he'd win. I think.
Yeah,
he'd beat the guy, which I think
that very possibly, but I'm not going on that.
Yeah, but I mean, I was going to say that's one metric that you could use, but another way is, as we all talk about, what have you done for me lately?
And then my Stevenson is on as good as he and right now, but also potential as well.
Yeah. But we're doing them different ways, aren't we? I'm not.
I'm gonna go like Davis. All of us getting absolutely destroyed in the live chat now, I'd imagine. Hello, everybody. Hello. Davis, number 1. Yeah, I know he's regular champion. Yeah, I get it, but whatever. So we're going to go Davis, number 1.
It's a good debate.
It's almost harder now than it was a few years ago. And we've got more information now.
Yeah. It's just conflicting information, isn't it? That's the problem.
Davis 1.
You can counteract it straight away, can't you, with something else?
Yeah. I'm going to go Lopez 2. Haney 3, Stevenson 4. But I think...
that different.
I've got dandruff, you've been here so long.
It's still pretty...
But I think Stevenson will, similar to you, Barry, I think Stevenson will eventually grow in. I do think Stevenson does have a problem with explosive fighters. You can tell, like when he boxed Nakatila and then when he boxed the other night, just when he can't always have the athletic edge in the competition, you definitely see a complete difference in him. And that's why I'd always kind of slightly fancy Davis. But if they were to box in the next year, I'd
or Lopez with him.
Yeah, someone who's like twitchy. But
you'd fancy him beating Haney, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would. It's really difficult. It's a really difficult... I can't even remember what my top 4 was. But anyway.
And Haney, though, who would you fancy over Haney and Lopez? Which that fight might happen, actually, no?
Again, like with Lopez, it's
just because I know Lopez got beat by that guy, but then he beat, like, remember I said he beat the man who beat the man, but didn't beat the man, you know, and which Lopez was at the time.
And you look at the job that Lopez did on Lomachenko.
The thing with Lopez, out of all of them, Lopez is the one who blows hot and cold the most.
For sure. The rest of them are so much more consistent.
Yeah.
So much more consistent.
Even in bad performances, they're pretty consistent.
Another reason why I have to have Lopez as my number 1 is that his biggest wins are Lomachenko, and he definitely won that fight.
He definitely
and he absolutely did beat Josh Taylor.
But the outlier of being beat by Kambosos does.
I know, but I'm looking at... I'm choosing to ignore that for the purposes of my argument.
He is. I mean, it's
not ignore it. You know what I mean?
So arguably, Haney's got the worst wins. The worst wins. That's not so right, do they? Worst wins.
Yeah. But I mean, having said that,
what's Davis's best win?
Still probably Pedraza.
Yeah.
Ryan Garcia.
Yeah. That's why he's not. That's why he's where he is.
Yeah.
But it's the manner in which he does it, though.
Yeah.
And that's you
just go on forever again.
No,
this is why pound for pound this is a waste of fucking time.
Yeah.
Because you're just like
but it's also why they're all such great fun to debate.
Yeah.
Because there's no real right or wrong answer. Unless you've got Haney at number 1. But then, they're really cool. But let us know in the comments who you think is most wrong out of me, Andy, and Barry.
Do that.
Before we move on and talk about the return of the WBO Cruiserweight champion Chris Billam-Smith, let's have a look at one fight on the undercard of Haney Prograis. It is the second professional bout of a certain Andy Cruz. Returns against somebody that we're familiar with on these shores, Giovanni Straffon, who was drafted in, I think, in the last couple of weeks. Andy Cruz, who was he supposed to box originally? doesn't matter. But anyway, is now in there against Giovanni Straffon. Andy, we've obviously all been very, very excited by Andy Cruz. We're very excited about his professional debut, which he won in good fashion against Juan Carlos Burgos. Been out of the ring for a little bit of time since then, but returns this weekend against somebody in Giovanni Straffon that we have seen against James Tennyson and, of course, Maxi Hughes as well. I think a good fight for Andy Cruz this weekend.
Yeah, it's a good match for him. I'm just interested to see how he progresses fight by fight, Cruz. He's a phenomenally talented fighter for whom there seem to be all kinds of possibilities, but it's still very early and nothing is guaranteed. So I'm looking forward to it because, as I say, every time I see him get in there as a pro, I feel like I need to see evidence of that transition having been made, because there's still a massive difference between pro boxing and amateur boxing. Maybe not as big as it used to be since we moved away from computer point scoring 10 years ago. So Cruz, all of his top level stuff has been done with the 10-point must as an amateur, which I think narrows that gap a bit between the two codes, but it's still considerable, the difference. And I hope that he does go on and do everything that we kind of want him to. But history shows that is a very difficult thing to do.
We've seen this past weekend, world-class amateur Michael Conlan, admittedly not necessarily the same level as an Andy Cruz, but hasn't quite worked out for him. Barry, first time we've seen Andy Cruz since his pro debut back in July. Obviously, I'm sure there are reasons for that, but would we have liked to have seen him maybe a little bit sooner?
How old is he now, Andy?
28.
Okay, so he's 37. He's a lie. No, yeah, I think very important, especially for a talent like him, is to just get him have a really busy 18 months, and then or maybe less actually, but have 6 fights in a year, because he might stop 6 opponents or five opponents, and then you chuck him into something because he's that good. The worry with this might have changed over the years, but history will tell you there are a lot of fantastic Cubans that come over to the US. I'm not in the US. Well, they haven't come over here. Have gone to the US with brilliant backgrounds and guaranteed shoe-ins to be phenomenal professionals, but they've gone from poverty to getting 10 grand or 15 grand a fight, and you don't see them until they spend the 15 grand. Then they come back and fight again, and then they get 50 grand for that fight, and you don't see them again until they spend the 50 grand. So I go on, and that's how they live their life. So we've seen all these precocious talents from the Cuban system even win world titles and underperform.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Most of them have actually gone on to win a world title, but we still feel like they haven't done what they might have. But like you say, they go from this system, which is one of the most rigid structures you will find, although an excellent one for bringing through really good fighters, to a life where they kind of get to decide what they do, and
freedom, isn't it?
It's the freedom. It's the freedom. Yeah,
you can spend your own money, go where you want, talk to people.
Yeah,
everything from everything. You just have living a lot, and you're having money. And by the way, 15, 20 grand a fight might be rubbish for other people. For them, it's like what?
Yeah, that's all the money in the world.
I remember my first. I got £300 cash my first fight. I didn't know what to do.
They're doing a pro show in Cuba next March.
Are they?
Yeah. Fancy it?
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah,
I really do.
I'll be going to. Yeah,
we'll
be going.
Who's promoting that?
So it's Jerry Saldivar. So they do. I think it's called Golden.
No, I remember. I remember them coming to that agreement a while ago, and it hasn't really got off the ground.
They've been boxing in Mexico, and boxing here and there, and obviously it's difficult.
They must be. Sorry, the Cuban. They must be thinking, all this revenue that's going over there, is that kind of like?
Yeah. You would think.
It's funny
the time difference for TV in US
good.
TV.
And when you look at the kind of Cuban amateur team, they almost had the same team for almost like 3 Olympics in a row, really. And people like Cruz and Arlen Lopez,
what change of winning formula, isn't it?
Roniel Iglesias, they're coming to the end now. Ramirez has obviously gone pro. Argos went pro a while ago, but I don't really know what's happening with him. But it was very settled, and they were all massive names, and still are really, really big names. But the fighters who are coming in behind them, and with international amateur boxing being in a bit of chaos at the minute as well, maybe now is the time when professional boxing can actually begin to have more of an impact.
That opens it up massively, that do, for the talent they have and the system they have. If they can have a problem, because the problem with them is, again, like Andy Cruz, I don't know what he's as a person, obviously, but if history has told you anything, he needs people around him all the time.
Yeah.
So he doesn't go off on a tangent and disappear.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully he's not in Miami, which seems to be the graveyard for Cuba.
Yeah, it does.
One of the few ones,
he's
like,
in Philadelphia with Bozy Ennis, who seems like a very no-nonsense character, Bozy Ennis.
Well, Yoel Casamiro was one of the few who didn't. I mean, I don't know what he did with his life, but he always seemed dedicated. He was my weight just after me, but he seemed really dedicated, and he had a tremendous career. I mean, he didn't do some other Cubans did, but he fulfilled his potential massively, and he thought, but he did. And he's training fighters, I think. So but
he's based out of City Gym in Vegas. Yeah. So every time you pop in there, see him, Mike McCallum, Mickey Bay, all kind of round together.
Isn't that bad, is it? No. Counting a few things up there.
And what would be interesting to see with Cruz as well is can he get his head around the idea that what we talked about earlier, this is the entertainment business? Because you look at someone like Rigondeaux, like how good was he? And he was absolutely amazing. And that win against Donaire was kind of it's one of those wins that people just seem to choose to forget about. And at the time, it was
an
absolutely massive win.
We did that on Box Nation. It was brilliant. I thought, look at this kid. Like, I've seen him before, but he did everything right there. He got the balance right between like being defensively brilliant, but offensively superb. He really sold himself.
But then after
I'm
a big Rigo guy, but the amount of times at 3-4 in the morning, I fucking come on, Rigo, please do something.
Yeah, and the amount of times we kind of get told, no, he understands now that he needs to put on more of a show, and obviously he was never ever going to do that.
He has been responsible for some of the worst fights that I've sat through.
I think with him, it's like that, because he looks like you got like that arrogant look about him, and they go, yeah, Rigo, you're getting 50 grand for this fight. 50 grand or nothing. I take it. I do the accent. I take it. Because it's not an accent, is it? I'll take it. And he go, I'll give you 50 grand's worth. Yeah. You got to get 50 grand's worth of boxing from me. Because he thought I thought he beat
John Morel Casemiro when they boxed.
Yeah.
I thought he beat him. He just didn't really do much in the fight, but he made Casemiro miss for the whole fight and just kind of occasionally threw the odd jab and showed him the left hand and then went for a walk, and then I thought he won. I thought he won the fight. Casemiro
I criticised him terrible for when he quit against Lomachenko.
Yeah, I think like that.
But I understand.
To me, anyway,
he was too big and all that.
That was heartbreaking.
Rigo too good to have somebody clown him. Like he's not going to stay in there and let this guy take the piss out of him and a hand injury.
I remember at the time. At the time, I was like, "Well, don't take the fight then."
He'd rather get knocked out and get embarrassed.
But I was saying, "Don't take the fight." Like if you don't want, but then there's people saying to me, "But what else fights are you going to take?"
Fancy that fight happening at super featherweight. That's where that fight eventually happens. Super featherweight. Rigondeaux, what business does he have?
Walking around 8 stone 10.
No business at all being up there.
But Andy Cruz, that's the thing with Andy Cruz. I would imagine, like, if you just go from what we know of the past with Cuban fighters coming over from nothing and having a bit of money, is outside of the boxing business, someone keeping an eye on them, making sure they not actually go from one communist country to another one, but no, making sure just keep an eye on them at all times. No, just make sure they're not going crazy and they understand that this could be having 100 grand a fight could be 10 million in 3 years time if you're sensible there.
I was just having a look through Rigondeaux's. I was trying to think what fight it was. So he boxed Drian Francisco on the Canelo Cotto undercard.
Yeah, I did that card.
And I remember thinking at the time, like, it was like, it's a big platform. He's going to show everybody.
That was exactly what I was talking about. We did that one.
I remember watching that.
But that was the one where it was kind of like almost, this is it now, mate. You've got to, none of this just doing enough to win. This is a massive platform. You are going to do this, aren't you? Yes, don't worry. Of course I am. And then he didn't.
But thankfully, you guys also had Francisco Vargas versus Takashi Miura on that.
Brilliant. One of the great
Francisco Vargas
fights.
is always in such brilliant fights.
Big fan of him. Double Olympian, which is a really unusual fight.
He never had a bad fight, didn't he?
No. He had some brilliant fights. Right, anyway, we're going to move on. We're going to move on and go to Bournemouth. So from the glitz and glamour of LA to whatever Bournemouth is.
The Bournemouth International Centre.
The
is
Bournemouth
pretty glamorous.
International Centre.
Who puts a fight on? This is Sunday.
Mate,
Don't
don't
a
even get me
fight on
started,
Sunday. You know what I mean? Fucking Sky.
It's now cost Chris Billam-Smith his prize possession.
No, to be honest, we've been raving about Sunday fights. Oh, Sunday fights.
No, I'm bang up
but
for
no, we got Haney the night before. It's like, oh, Sunday fights.
And also, it's in Bournemouth. God, Sunday in London. Okay, you can just
Also,
make your peace
we've
with.
been raving about. Yeah, going to Bournemouth.
Yeah,
Oh,
God.
Bournemouth on a
It's going to be
fucking
Bournemouth
Sunday.
are away, aren't they? It's
on the Saturday.
yeah,
they're away, so that's
they need to do it
that's
on the
why
Sunday.
they've done
And
it.
then
Yeah.
you know, there's obviously the darts on Sky starts the next Friday, I think on the 15th, and that's a big consideration. 'Cause that just takes
Yes,
So
massive.
it's interesting
everything over for.
because when Warrington boxed Wood in Sheffield, I think Nottingham were down in London playing, and Leeds maybe were at home. But the crowd, it wasn't a massive crowd. I mean, they sold lots of tickets, but it wasn't packed out, the Sheffield Arena. And I think that's because of the football.
Yeah, you have
So,
to.
you know, I didn't think about that. But
You have to. You have to.
No,
look
Chris-
at it.
because all those Nottingham lunatics are down there, and they're all watching
Yeah.
the football for they're going to watch the Wood, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
Chris had to take the lead on that, as I understand it. He basically had to say, "Look, I can't fight on Saturday because and there weren't that many choices of weekends, and it kind of had to be that weekend." And I think he basically just had to say, "Well, fine, but it can't be on Saturday. It's going to have to be on Sunday."
I wouldn't mind going to that.
Big fan of midweek boxing. Not
Can
a fan. of
anyone
Sunday
get me a
boxing.
ticket?
No, it's sold out.
What?
Sold out.
The fucking sold out.
Sold out.
Just give me his press pass.
It's a good arena, that
It is good. Like
It's a good arena.
the
Kind of
the atmosphere for the
gently
Chamberlain.
sloping.
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
tiered.
It's good and it's loud,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it was
Because
good
it's
against
like
Jojai last year.
It's
Yeah.
like
You
surrounds you, doesn't it? With the
You call it sloping. A lot of people call it sinking. Needs a new arena. No, it'd be good, wouldn't it? It'd be great. They have great
Yeah, it'd
atmosphere.
be good.
there.
and a really good fight. The main event is a really,
It's a
really good
hard
fight. As
fight,
far
man.
It's a hard fight.
as far as world title defenses go, first world title defense, Mateusz Masternak is not the sexiest name in the division, but he's a hard night's work, Andy.
Yeah, he is a hard night's work, and what says it all about Masternak is basically he became a European champion 10 years ago, 2012 I think it was, and since then he's been in the top 10 basically, you would say. In 2018 he got an invite to that inaugural cruiserweight tournament in the World Boxing Super Series, which was absolutely phenomenal. So to be selected for that again shows 6 years on from winning his European title, he's still at that level. And my point is that in all of that time where he's been available for selection for a voluntary defence, nobody has ever given him one. And there's a reason for that.
No one can say his name.
And there's a reason for that.
Rather him than Vladarchik.
As you say, because he's a hard night's work. And okay, he's getting on in age, but this is his chance, a chance that he probably never thought would come, and he will know that he won't get another one. This is it for him now, to do the one thing that he hasn't done, which is win a world title. So as motivation goes, it doesn't get much better than that.
And
It
his
doesn't
best
get much
chance as well, by the way.
Yeah, it doesn't get. But he did. This is during camp he will have been thinking to himself all the way through, Chris Billam-Smith is a mug. Like, why has he done this? I cannot believe he has done this. I cannot believe my luck. Like, the man is insane. But on the flip side, I like the fact that Billam-Smith has done it. Firstly, because I like to see a good fight, but also because you've got to try and you've got to make sure that you set yourself a challenge, something that you know that you're going to get up for, that puts that fear in your belly. Off the back of a stadium fight, which as he said to Andy Scott in the ring afterwards, I'm never going to top this. It's not going to get better than this. And when I heard that, alarm bells ring a bit. But having heard him speak about it subsequently, I don't mind it because he's picked Masternak. He knows that if he wants to keep the ball rolling, he has got to put himself in that place where he's got to be at his absolute best.
And this is a better fight to watch. Any fight's a better fight to watch. But yeah, actually, it wasn't a great fight to watch because the Coolies can spoil, can't he? But it was, I mean, for him, winning at home in your football stadium is a dream for any boxer who's a fan of their home football club. That's just unbelievable. But it's a hard fight for him. It is a really hard fight. I think, like, I was going to joke about saying we've just heard from Sky's Andy Clarke, but he's right though. I think it is that sort of fight. No one's going to be excited about the name Masternak, but that's still Tony Bellu's best win. There you go. I mean, that's a long time ago, and there is a chance that there is a chance and a real big chance that he's nowhere near the fight that he once was. But you farting?
Yeah,
no,
I was just sitting on my fat ass for 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. But but it's still a really really good hard fight. It's one of those fights where you lose to him, you'd be like, people, you go massively criticised. You go, oh, come on, this is a guy who's been boxing since 2000. When did he turn pro? 2009 or something?
1995, I think.
I think I boxed him as an amateur. He used to be a featherweight. But he's technically very good. Strong. He just,
good movement. People make out like he's just some sort of like come forward plodder.
He's a proper European
boxer.
He's you know what I mean? He's an hard man. But
people stereotype he's Polish. He's tough. He's this. He's that. But he's just a good fighter.
And Billam-Smith. The reason why I thought Billam-Smith was going to lose against Okoli was because he does commit. He was clever. He's smart against Okoli. Actually, he was smart. I might give him credit for. But I mean, he does commit to his attacks, and that gives you a chance to whack him. And with the good structure that he has, Masternak, Billam-Smith's got to be trying to push forward and make him work too hard and get on top of him. But I mean, if he makes a mistake, Masternak being neat and not good on his feet, will land with some good right hands. We'll be able to get some make Billam-Smith think about his work. Start panicking. If Billam-Smith comes too far forward, walks onto an uppercut, Masternak's technically pretty good. So it is a hard fight. But I think it'll be a good fight, actually. I think it'll be a good fight to watch.
I think stylistically, it can't really disappoint, I don't think.
Billam-Smith will make it a good fight, I think, to be fair. I think Billam-Smith's fan-friendly. Really fan-friendly. His fight against Okoli wasn't a great fight to watch by any stretch of the imagination, but we sort of expected that.
Yeah.
Okoli's fight's only good if he knocks you out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it was off the back of a really good fight against Chamberlain, and then a very entertaining fight against Zhozhai with a great knockout. And then an awesome spectacle against Okoli, but you're right, not a great fight. But
it was one of those
setting
wasn't it?
And everything in the story, made up for it.
No, for him, that's his moment. He just won the world title. Don't matter you win it, you won it, and he had to tough it out against a guy who was a massive underdog, by the way. No, I thought he was going to get knocked out cold against Okoli.
And
so did we.
We all picked Okoli to win.
Again, what I said, I thought his bravery trying to win a fight was ultimately going to get him in trouble in the end.
And he got hit with some big shots in that fight. People make out that Okoli just tried to hug him for the whole fight. Okoli hit him with some massive shots. But yeah, it is very much a potential banana skin for Chris Billam-Smith. There's a lot of talk at the minute about Richard Riakporhe and a lot of talk about, the Okoli rematch and this and that. Can't afford to overlook Mateusz Masternak, and to be fair to Billam-Smith, he doesn't strike me as the type of fighter who would overlook somebody, particularly when you come from somebody who's not supposed to be a world champion, was never earmarked as a world champion.
I was going to say that because he's not. He's a world champion and he's a good fighter, and I say this because I think I'm the same. He's not good enough to overlook anyone. That's why Chris Billam-Smith is a beatable fighter. It was very hard to beat. It makes no sense at all. Actually, well, it's come out my mouth.
Oh, you mean?
No, it makes total sense.
You could go. I know what to do against him, but he's
going to make it really hard for you to do it.
Yeah, he can make it really hard to do it. Yeah, really hard to do because he's a tough hat. He doesn't look tough, and he sounds really posh.
Just so you know, there's absolutely no chance I'm not going to nick that off you at some point during the week. A beatable fighter who's very hard to beat.
Yeah, you're going to sound like a right.
Yeah, I'm going to take
do
that.
With the Welsh accent to get it.
No, but I think
I tell you what, right? He'd be like he's beatable, but he's not.
No, I think that's a perfect way of describing it because that is what he is, and like you say, he knows it. So you don't ever. I don't ever see Billam-Smith, losing because he took his eye off the ball or he didn't believe that the other guy was a threat, and he's definitely taken that out of the equation by the person he's picked. He could have picked someone else who maybe would have fallen into that bracket, whereby you start looking ahead a little bit and do that thing that you swore you never would. But he definitely won't be doing that against Masternak.
But his diligence and his work ethic makes him the fighter he is. So we all think about how they perform in the ring and how technically great you are. You're only as good as you can be. You can work on stuff and get a bit better, but ultimately your skill's your skill, isn't it? That what you've got. All the other stuff you can work hard at to catch up. And what he's done, what he lacked in natural ability, and he has got natural ability, what he's lacked in natural ability against others who've had more than him, he's made up for with all the other bits. All the bigger bits that make up for a good fighter about dedication. Steve Robinson did. I always mention him back in the day, world champion from Cardiff. He had skill, but he didn't have as much skill as Colin McMillan or Paul Hodgson, people who he beat quite convincingly. but all the other stuff makes a bigger part of a fighter. He made sure he did all that and made all that bigger and better than them. So he was 100% prepared. He couldn't be any better than he was. And Billam-Smith's like that. He can't be no better than what he is. He makes sure he's the maximum what he is when he gets in there. I think he stops Masternak. There you go.
Would be a big performance.
No, I think he does.
It's very, very tough. We did a day in the life with him, and as it often is the case.
Where's my day in the life?
No one wants to.
Sat in my house eating biscuits, crying over my dog. Go on.
But yeah, we did the day in the life with him, and as we all know, like, the life of a boxer isn't always the most exciting in camp, certainly. But even that, I can get an insight into sort of, he like has mouth tape to keep his mouth closed when he's asleep, so he's breathing through his nose. He has these like what are they called, like some sort of blocking glasses that block out all the lights and blue light goggles or whatever to help you sleep. But these are all little things that give you that, not even 1%, 0.5% here, 0.5%
marginal
there.
gains.
Exactly. And I know Andy, he'd said a brilliant line to you that I've stolen in the past, where he said about, I don't drink because I'm not good enough to drink. I'm not talented enough to drink. And that's true. Some fighters can be all the talent in the world, and I say they don't need to. They feel that they can get away with not doing a run or not doing this or sloping off before the final circuit of the week or anything like that. He's not really done that. I mean, we've told this story several times. With
level of
Billam-Smith.
consistency when it's just cemented and cemented and cemented, and over time it builds up more and more and more and counts for more, because you can't ever turn the clock back, can you? You see fighters who get more dedicated as they get older, or they have some kind of epiphany, usually following a defeat, where they realise they've not been doing things right and buckle down, and that's great. But if you find yourself in against someone who's always done that, then, like Barry said, that doing that can bridge that talent gap, if there is one. I mean, all of these people have got a lot of natural ability. It's just
some have more than others.
It's levels, isn't it?
Like some people can punch harder than others. You got what you got, but what you want to make sure. But and that's almost a natural ability, which everyone has their own natural ability. I know Roy Jones don't believe in it because he worked for it, but he had natural ability more than most others. He'd just because he worked it, made him what he was. But you can't do nothing about that. You got that. You were given that. You don't deserve credit for that. All the other stuff you can do something about, and that's he's doing all that wearing stupid goggles to bed and taping his mouth shut, the weirdo. That's just like, why went over his sexual preferences? That's a freak. That's a man. You behave yourself. You know what I mean? Like banana in his ear when he goes to sleep. What's he on about? It just makes no sense to me. It's just like I'll never look at the kid the same again. But he makes sure he brims it right up to the full. He fills it up. Whatever he got, he fills it up. He doesn't make there's no room for error, because he knows, like I did as well, I can beat a world champion. I can beat another world champion, but I can lose to a British champion as well. I knew that, and he knows that, and because that's where he sort of is. When you lack certain things, I had no power, so for me it was like, well, I know, like I could lose to a British champion, but I also know I can beat a world class fighter as well on my day. And there's very, very rarely the fighters. Once you get to world level, you've way past that level now. You're never they can't touch you. But he's not there, and he knows it. And by the way, arguably British level in his weight division is world class.
Yeah, there's a big, deep. Certainly domestic division, as you mentioned. They're not necessarily domestic. We've got another fighter for a world title on December the 23rd. Not necessarily of the same ilk with respect to him, but still. You mentioned earlier on, Barry, that you expect Chris Billam-Smith to stop Mateusz Masternak. What makes you say that?
I just got carried away with it all.
It's always easy to do, but you have to.
No, I do. I think he'll be. I don't think he approaches exactly the same way as he did to Coley. I think he's more proactive. I mean, he'll be busier. I want to get. He's busy then, won't he? But I mean, he'll be pushing forward much more, because there won't be the fear of getting knocked out cold. Though there's a worry that he does, because he does that. But I think he'll be on him all the time. I think and for age and as long as he's had Masternak, you got to drag him down deep, quick. I think. Make him bust the guts as quick as you can, like as early as you can, so he's doing it for longer. And I think Billam-Smith gets him late. I do, because one thing Billam-Smith has got is a fantastic engine, and he'll just keep throwing money. So I do think that. I think he gets him. I think he stops him late. On his feet, maybe. I think I don't think he knocks him on cold, but I think he pummels him. I can see Masternak up on the ropes like this, just not being able to really fire back, and the referee just jumping in.
And he's going to put it all out there, Masternak, isn't he? Because, like we said, this is his chance. This is it.
And you think about it as well for him, he's probably looking at Chris Billam-Smith style-wise and thinking, that one actually suits me quite well. Rather than who was that Usyk guy who had it before? No, I'm not really up for that. Like, you know, you look at something again, like we all have from when before he'd even boxed for the Commonwealth title against Craig Glover, before he boxed Richard Riakporhe. You look at him and you just think, okay, strong, can hold a good shot, decent power, but you know, there's nothing that jumped out from you from watching Chris Billam-Smith early on and said, okay, yeah, that's going to make him this, that's going to make him that, which is probably one of the reasons why he's become popular and been able to get to the point that he's got to. He's kind of one of those fighters who we all like to watch over the years, who have taken each step as and when they've come and kind of passed the test as and when they've got there.
Nothing much, like, it sounds so horrible this, and I'm a fan of it. I love watching him, and he's a good fighter. He's a genuine world champion. He just beat the number one in the division, so he's arguably number one in the division himself now, isn't he? But arguably, but he's nothing of me watching Billam-Smith on the way up suggests he'd be a world champion, and that's testament to him, by the way. I never looked at him and thought, oh, that's world champion. You know, you look at fighters, you go, he's special. You see early on, don't you? Sometimes
you look at Michael Conlon,
he's
Michael Conlon coming through.
Yeah, talk about Paddy Donovan. You got that something. He might not make it, but you got something that, you know, you can see that might take him a little bit further than others. You know, and Billam-Smith never had that. A lot of fighters don't have that and still make it. Not everyone.
And a lot of fighters have it and then don't.
But I mean, he was getting the levels, and I still didn't see it. I didn't think he beat the Coley. Because of that, I didn't see him just being able to. I don't know. He's committed and brave, but he lacks that X factor, or you're overcommit and get caught. He lacked that X factor thing that you can't really put your finger on what it is. He didn't quite have that. There's nothing that he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything outstandingly great. But you don't have to. If you do everything well and good and you prepare, and that is his greatness. That is his skill.
His talent. Yeah.
That's his talent. That's his talent.
Yeah, and I believe that.
Which it is a talent.
Yeah,
by the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely is. We you know, people talk about this a lot, don't they? And they talk about talent as it's almost like this kind of it's this sort of innate,
fairy dust,
genetic, ethereal thing. Whereas hard work is just this boring thing that anyone can do. Well, quite clearly, not anyone can do it. Because if they did, we would all be doing it.
Well, we don't. The whole landscape of boxing would be different.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have won a fight, let alone a title. I wouldn't be the best fighter in my house. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm one of the most naturally gifted. There you go, in my house. There you go. Yeah. And I bet you, and everyone will tell you the same story. Every boxer said, I wasn't even the best in my gym as an amateur, and I weren't. I was in the end. But again, I was down to go. I was always down the gym training like a lunatic. I loved training, and that's a natural talent.
It is
that I loved to train. That my brother hated the training. He was more skillful than me.
Exactly.
He hated it.
That's either in you or it's not.
Yeah,
to a large extent.
Yeah.
I'm sure Chris Billam-Smith will not be looking past Mateusz Masternak, as he well shouldn't, but we will, because it's more fun. Where next for Chris Billam-Smith, if all being well, he gets past Mateusz Masternak? It looks as though that Richard Riakporhe fight could well be ordered by the WBO. He'd be in the mandatory position. Lawrence Okoli, I think, is still due his crack at redemption. What are we thinking? It seems as though that Riakporhe... Well,
I think the WBO are going to call that.
Billam-Smith Riakporhe 2, even though Riakporhe won the first one. Yeah. So we've got Billam-Smith Riakporhe 2. Yeah.
I think the WBO are going to call that. If they don't, then he'll have to. If he beats Masternak, he would have to fight Okoli. But from what I'm told, although we don't know for sure, everybody expects the WBO to install Riakporhe as make him their mandatory.
What happens with the contract then of those rematch clauses?
That's with the lawyers. Shout out the lawyers.
Well, the winner, if Riakporhe gets made mandatory, Billam-Smith beats Masternak. Let's say that happens. Riakporhe gets made mandatory. Billam-Smith will fight Riakporhe, and then the winner would fight Okoli.
Yeah, because there wouldn't have been a mandatory since was David Light a mandatory? Or was that voluntary?
No, I'm pretty sure that was a mandatory.
Was it? Oh, that's a touch one.
I'm not sure.
It's a hard fight in the end, wasn't it?
Because it was the first defence after Glavatsky. Was that still David Light?
Yeah.
No, it was Mikhail Sislak.
Yes,
because if you win a vacant belt, you have to defend against a mandatory.
You have to defend against somebody.
This is so nerdy.
But anyway, that is the scenario. If the mandatory gets called, then
what do we think about that fight? Because obviously Riakporhe nicked the first one, and I mean, for me, he really did nick the first one.
Yeah.
I did 5 rounds apiece, and I thought that a knockdown that could have not been called on the night, it was called. was ultimately the difference. There's obviously an awful lot that's happened in both of their careers since then. But we're kind of, this is like one of the very rare examples.
Because this room is massively pro Billam-Smith.
I'm great with both of them. But anyway, but the all of like the water that's gone under the bridge over the last few, I was about to say something very telling then. Yeah, Barry, who do you think fucking wins the fight?
I think they're both better than they were back then.
Yeah.
And there's always a worry with Riakporhe. If he hits you with a long right hand, it can change the whole pattern of a fight. But you'd have to favour Billam-Smith now, because I don't think there's loads of wear and tear on Billam-Smith, but he's had those really hard fights where he knows what he has to do when he has to do it. So you can see how willing he is to walk through the fire. He's done it now. He's been in that dark place. I hate talking like that. It's like a commentator tonight. But in a real dark place, he's been there before, and more than Richard. But Richard's better than he was. The structure's getting better, and I was always worried with him. He was just right hand happy at that when they boxed, I think. And now he's a little bit more. There's more stuff to his game, and he looks tidier and neater. So it's a risky fight. It's a good fight. That's a really good fight. It's a better fight than a Cody, obviously, to watch for us. And
I think it's a really good fight. I'm not sure.
I favour Billam-Smith.
I think you have to. If he beats Masternak, he's the defending champion. He is more seasoned. But Riakporhe, you look at how kind of quickly he's learnt on the job, Riakporhe, and at that stage of a career to have the amount of time out that he had this year, it's not ideal. But I still think that because of his relative inexperience, a lot of time in the gym, because he is dedicated and he stays in shape, I think you could do a lot with him in that time. Because I just remember really clearly those fights against, the first one against Sam Hyde, where he had these series of not even 50-50s. Sam Hyde, Tommy McCarthy, Billam-Smith, Jack Massey. And against Sam Hyde, he'd lost every round, but he managed to get the win. He found the right hand and he managed to get the win. And you could see somebody really learning on the job. And he was just about staying afloat. He was at that stage where, when he was put under pressure, you could see the panic, because he'd pull these weird facial expressions and he'd twitch almost, and you could literally see him panicking and see him having to try and keep it under control. And he just about did it. But wow, that is a baptism of fire on fight night to have to do that.
Groves Eubank undercard, was that? It was in Manchester, wasn't it? I can't remember, what was it? Or Usyk Bellew?
Usyk Bellew it would have been. But to watch that kind of, watch someone go through that on fight night rather than in sparring, for example, I thought, okay, well, who knows how far he can get off the back of this, but that was impressive.
Both him and Billam-Smith had really hard apprenticeships, actually. They both were fighting each other for one, but...
Yeah, absolutely. I remember beforehand, like when that fight was made, it was for White Parker undercard.
Yeah,
and I remember people said, because I knew both of them, and not a lot of people knew either of them. Are either of these guys any good? And I was like, well, we're going to find out soon. I mean, remember, because Riakporhe had his
answer, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're going to find out. Yeah.
But Riakporhe, if you remember, his first kind of big chance, as it were, was on the White-Brown undercard. And he boxed a 4-rounder and he got dropped heavy in the first round by Adam Williams.
Yeah, got put down.
Yeah. And so he's kind of, and that was, I think he boxed Sam Hyde a fight or two later after that.
It might have been his next fight, because that would have been like June, July, and then
you could fight the Sam Hyde, by the way. That's a really good fight. They should have done better than
he had a brilliant fight with Dion Juma.
I picked Dion to win. I picked Sam to win that, but Dion got the nod, didn't he?
I just feel like with Riakporhe, I just think there is more to come. We already know about the power, but he definitely has tightened up. He's physically a big unit.
Yeah, he's proper Cuban-esque, isn't he? Because he's like got those big shoulders, he got those massively long. He came in the Sky Studio, did the podcast the other week, and he had like an old design, retro tax. And he looked like, when you go to those tournaments as an amateur, you see the Cubans in the corner, they all had like the old tracksuits on. They were like zipped up, they always zipped up to there, eating a bowl of ice cream. That's what they used to eat. All the Russians and Eastern Europeans had bread. It's fair, it was like that. They'd be in all the ice, all the sugar, but they would be just so languid like that. You just see them like, they just like go and grab something about 4 meters away. There you go, get some syrup. And he was in the studio. He was like that. His arms were like that.
I remember earlier on in his career, around that time when he boxed on the White-Brown undercard, he was going to go out and spar in Cuba for a while. And I'm not sure if he ever actually went. And
I think he did.
Yeah, he was going to go out and spar Erislandy Savon and Julio Cruz.
He's definitely been to Cuba.
Nice.
I know
that. But I think now he's kind of worked with Angel Fernandez. I think, like we mentioned earlier, about him being a little bit tighter. I think it's a shame for him because he had that. We were talking about the I guess the pre-career in a sense of those wins over McCarthy, Billam-Smith, etc. They had the hand injury, then some management issues, and kind of went missing for about 18 months or so.
Yeah.
Now he's come back. He managed to get like some good wins at a level where he was able to learn in those fights under a new trainer, but then got to a point where a lot of fighters get to when you're on that cusp of a world title shot, and then the political game starts. But yeah, exactly.
Who was he going to fight just for the pandemic?
Riakporhe.
Yeah.
He beat Massey, didn't he?
He was
to
going
win
to
the
box the European title or something, and then they were talking about maybe getting that.
Gulamarian.
Yeah,
but Gulamarian and Egorov were trying to fight each other for quite literally about 3 years.
Well, Gulamarian was the one that got away, wasn't it? Recently, the poster was done apparently.
No, but I mean, just for the pandemic, you can box another European. It wasn't Masternak, but it was something similar to that sort of thing. But it was and then that hit, and I put he had his hand injury.
Yeah, he had the hand injury and then the management.
I remember
he
came to Sky, he had a big plaster thing on his arm. It was like, So
he's had like kind of two periods in that same time where Billam-Smith has been busy and has been active. Obviously, Billam-Smith lost to Riakporhe, then went and boxed Glover in Liverpool for the Commonwealth title, which is a big win at the time. He loses that fight. And
Glover was Bellu's boy, wasn't he? And people saying he was good, decent fighter.
Yeah, heavy-handed. He loses that fight.
Funny, it turns around.
From there you go Glover.
But you're right. It's been sort of strangely stop-start, hasn't it? Because after the Sky split with Matchroom and then signing with Boxer, he was one of the leading lights. It was either him or Savannah Marshall headlining shows, wasn't it? For a spell.
And I think they got a lot of those fights right for him as well.
Turkey, that was one. wasn't it?
Turkey. Obviously, Dion Juma. He had the 8-rounder. He come back with the first fight against the Polish guy. I can't remember his name, and he didn't look good in that one. Riakporhe, and that was the first one.
Twardowski.
Yeah, that's it. There we go. But they got him good fights where he could learn, and they weren't huge risk fights as well. And I felt like that's what he needed. When I initially heard Angel Fernandez as the trainer, you kind of think, okay, yeah, good, like loosen him up a little bit and kind of get him a bit more technical. But you need to kind of have the right fights for that. It's no good going in for somebody. Riakporhe is still relatively very inexperienced, and certainly at that point, you don't want to be trying to reinvent the wheel and sticking him in there with somebody who can.
No,
because then all of you're saying that, I was thinking like that's one of those things you got to be careful. You don't do like the Joshua thing, we try and make him more of a more loose and more thinks he's more athletic, but like it takes away. Sometimes people just need to be squared and bam.
And I think he's a good example of not changing too much and just kind of adding little bits and pieces.
But that's the thing is like when I heard him speak on the Sky Pod the other week, and when I've seen him around and had the chance to have a chat to him, but I feel like he's at that point now where he knows who he is as a fighter and he knows what he is, and he feels like he's ready to go. He feels like these are all good fighters, they're all world champions, these people I'm looking at, but I feel like I know what I'm about, I know what I want to do and how I'm going to try and do it. I trust my chin, I trust my balls. If it gets really tough in there, I'm ready, and we'll find out. But I think there was definitely that spell. Obviously, as I said, he was really thrown in the deep end where he was almost working out as he was going along whether he could do this at all or not, because that can take a while. If somebody gets fed a load of opponents who they're always going to beat, you can be 20 fights deep before you really discover whether it's for you, as people describe it. And that's what he was discovering during that period. And then after that, it was kind of, just... I read a great analogy in a book once where somebody was saying that, a fighter's like a big, rough, uncut lump of marble, and the trainer is like the sculptor. Like, you can't get another piece of marble and stick it on.
Sounds like a trainer wrote that book.
You can't get another piece of marble and stick it on, is the point. It's like you've got what you've got.
Yeah.
And you've got to fashion it into its most effective form. You've got to look at it and be able to see what that is and then do it. And I feel like we might have got there with Riakporhe. Whether that finished form is good enough to... How far that'll take him, we'll find out. But like I said, I feel like he he knows what he is.
The thing about his apprenticeship is you learn about yourself. I had the hardest apprenticeship, maybe not as hard as his, but you learn about yourself because you tucked in deep end early, and you know if you've got the courage to get through and all that sort of stuff. But what you don't learn sometimes is to develop things that you learn in the gym, because every fight is a survival fight. So you're just doing what you do just to get through it. And for him, then he wasn't learning maybe because he had a big right hand and he wants to land it, but he didn't know where he was to throw it. So he just kept throwing it. And then he wasn't always hitting the target over the top too often and making mistakes. And then with that, then you're so focused on that right hand, you're forgetting, and your left hand's going here to throw it, and you're making a big gap down the middle. And that's all he needs to do. It's quite simple to train him, really. Angel, let me tell you something. No, I've never trained anyone in my life, but I think it's all he needs to do.
Sound like Antonio Tava.
yeah. Well, yeah, maybe you're putting up money in Vegas. Yeah, you gotta come to me. Come to me. I'm 13%. But and all you got is you gotta just find you got that right hand. That's his money punch. That's the one that's gonna change his life. It's just getting to it. It's getting the right range of that. So it's this hand's got to get you there. So they just got to work on this. It's exactly the same with Anthony Joshua, actually. You've got to work on this to make that effective.
That's why I quite liked the combination of him and Mark Tibbs, because Mark Tibbs having just stripped him down basics.
Old-fashioned.
Yeah. Get a jab, set up the right hand. Like, very
sure Angel knows. No, Angel knows. His Angel's a
veteran. But I think him getting that grounding in those fights at that stage of his career, I arguably only really thought about it right now, kind of like set him up to have somebody who is a little bit more on that sort of the rhythms and the flows.
Yeah. I always thought Mark was really good for him.
Yeah, same. I did as well. And Dillian White, by the way.
Yeah, I think he kind of, I think what Mark absolutely knew with the challenge he had with Richard, with the fights that he was being put in, was that he couldn't overload him with information. Like, it had to be simple, and that's just kind of generally always the best way anyway. Yeah,
and you kind of look at it like that, and you think about how, you know, the right trainer at the right point of your career means a lot as well. Had he have gone with Angel Fernandez at that stage of his career, and it had been a little bit more, you know, trying to make it sound like Mark Tibbs just kind of paint by numbers or whatever, but it'd been a little bit more technical and a little bit more thought, and you thought, whoa, no, I just need to kind of learn how to keep these here and set this up, which is what he got. Or
it goes the other way, you know, like something then he learns more. It depends who you're fighting against. Yeah. So I think if you're having had tough fights like he had, then to keep that basic structure, the fundamentals is what they are, is what Mark Tibbs pretty works his whole career on, because he's been through the generation of his dad, training people in his dad boxing. You've learned from that they know whatever. There's always new stuff added to boxing, but ultimately it's the same thing. It's a basic sport, really. You take away all the bells and whistles of all these new techniques that we all got. There's actually no new techniques, really. There's just
new names.
They've jazzed them up, yeah. But you put that. The only one who's brought new techniques is Lomachenko, maybe, with the closest thing to bring a new technique to the sport, because what he does is weird to anyone else. But like, it's pretty much all the same sort of basis. So learn that perfect. And then if you've got athleticism and you've got natural adaptability, then you can work off that. But if you learn that first, that's why the first day in the gym, you're this. First week, first month, first year, shouldn't be throwing hooks. Elbows tucked in tight, hands up, straight punches, turn into your shots. And then you learn the footwork first, and you learn that with it, and then you learn how to move your feet better. But first of all, good balance, center your stance, straight punches. And for big guys with power, you need to do that better than most other weights, because that's, you know, because once you land with that right hand or that left hook or that straight jab, and the heavyweights, the bigger it goes, it's any punch. Once you can land with that cleanly, effectively, and be safe. So when one hand's out, when I said you telling you one hand's out, one hand's always touching your face, and vice versa. When you learn that as a big weight, you're a force, because you're blocking shots and hitting them with everything you got, because you're 14 stone, 13 stone, 20 stone, whatever it is, and it has an effect. So I think people like Tibbs are perfect for that. And then for those fights that he had, those hard fights he had, having that core structure was very important. But if he would have had more of an easier apprenticeship, then maybe an Angel Fernandez would have been better for him, because he wouldn't have learned a lot. He wouldn't be able to practice what he's doing in the gym, in the ring, in fights that weren't any worry for him, maybe. It's how it works out. But I still think there's still gaps there for him. I still think he's still loose. Even though he's tightened up, I still think that he is quite loose. So if he goes against Billam-Smith, which is a fight that's not going to happen yet, I could be just making it up. But I still think he goes in a massive underdog this time.
Massive underdog?
I think so, yeah. I think they both improved, but I think depending on Billam-Smith looks against Masternak.
Gotta give ourselves an out on the Boxing Show. We're
it's
not in
true,
good form.
but I think Billam-Smith has grown so much. I think the Chamberlain fight showed that. If anything,
said that like it's all relative, but Riakporhe sliced through Dylan Brejon very impressively. Dylan Brejon's good, like solid guy. Went 10 or 12 rounds of Chris Billam-Smith. Went 12 rounds of Billam-Smith. He did 8 with Chamberlain. Riakporhe kind of, boom, fight was over.
You get the power though.
Yeah, for sure. But like, it's kind of that. I thought that had a decent chance of him going certainly a few rounds. And while it wasn't the most well received fight in the world, you could kind of see the reason behind it. If you want one more, you want somebody's not as threatening, but somebody who's shown durability at a similar-ish sort of level, and he just went. But
that's the worry with someone who can punch. Once they can sort of their distance, once they get that working properly, so they got their distance, then they're throwing that right hand, knowing it's going to hit the punch through the target every time because they know where they are, and then you're dangerous.
He's a good body puncher as well. He stopped Turchi to the body, stopped Dion Juma with a right hand to the body. Yeah, strange shot, but yeah. Right, we're going to move on and talk about just one fight on the undercard, keeping it nice and balanced. Main event and one fight on the other. We see the return of a certain Ben Whittaker. I had to double check because he's still 4-0. It's not been. Let's try and dress it up. It's not been what we were told it was going to be, Andy. We now, should he not be fighting Dan Aziz? I'm all for the big push and the big this and the big that, but I guess it's the flip side of being Ben Whittaker and being flamboyant and being out there and extrovert and being this and the next Naz and what have you. When you're boxing Stephen Leonetti Dreidhage, I hope is the right way, after 4 and 5 fights, after what we were promised beforehand, it's not necessarily that. Not yet, anyway.
No, but I think what this shows is that it doesn't matter who you are. When you turn professional, what you need more than anything else is activity. And he hasn't had that for a combination of reasons. And until you get that, unless you're Vasily Lomachenko and you go in at the level he did and box for a world title in your second fight and win one in your third fight, and just because he did it, that doesn't mean that there's going to be many people who come along who are capable of doing it. He's the exception that proves the rule. And the rule is that you need to be as active as you can be. Yeah. And that is what has to happen with him. They've got to get him fighting as often as they
Every show he should
can.
Be on, isn't he?
Yeah, they need to get him fighting as often as they can. And I know that he's had some injury problems, and that is a concern because that can be a problem for all athletes in all sports. And sometimes it's something that nobody can do anything about. And I just really hope that doesn't happen to him because it's a tragedy almost, isn't it, in sporting terms, when somebody is denied the opportunity to fulfill their potential due to their body just letting them down. So let's just say that doesn't happen. Let's be optimistic about that. They've got to get him. They just got to get him boxing as often as they can. And it could be that means that he has to make some accommodations on his side. I don't know the terms of the deal that he's on, but let's say he's contracted to make a lot of money every time he fights. It could be that he needs to give a little bit on that to be able to box more regularly, to make the same amount of money for, say, 6 fights that he could make for 4, to be more active. These things are easier said than done because obviously a manager will rebel against that kind of that way of thinking, but we need to see him fight and fight as regularly as possible.
We do. I mean, the ability is undoubtedly there. Anybody who kind of watched him through the amateurs will be able to see that, and anybody who's seen kind of the very small amount of we've seen him as a pro can attest to that as well. But it feels like, Barry, that we're no closer to finding out how good of a pro that he'll be than we were when he was picking up silver medal in the Olympics.
No, yeah, but not are we? I mean, I liked his second fight in Saudi. That was his second fight, wasn't it? When he
so he went. Is that?
He went the distance, didn't he? But I can't remember who he boxed.
He boxed in the Olympics.
But he was carrying an injury into that fight.
Yeah, so I mean that's Peter Nosic.
But that was a nice eye opener for him. That it wasn't all going to be people falling over every time you touch him. And I thought I didn't mind that fight for him. I thought it gives him a bit of grounding. That was good. But again, it was just what Andy. I was just going to say what Andy said pretty much, but probably just a better looking version. But he just needs to be busy. We just need to see him as much as, because you're selling. We know he has the talent and ability. We don't know about his toughness yet. I'm sure he'll say I'm super tough, but we don't know what that's like. But for now, They just need to get him out for another year of fighting. They don't care who he fights. Just showing him off every show, every city, every show. Put him there, show him off. Good performances. He's an extrovert character, so he's going to be quite Marmite. I think he's going to be more De Gale than he is Amir Khan. I feel in the public side.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think, but that's a more sellable product now, isn't it? De Gale was never like a villain, but he's going to be more opinionated. Maybe he's not going to be such a all the mums love him type of thing. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, that's I know what you mean.
Yeah. He's not the Olympic golden boy.
Well, I don't mind him. I love his talent, but I mean, all the ring walking stuff, the way he acts and all that stuff, dancing stuff. That's for my generation probably. We just go in, oh, what the fuck's this kid doing? So that's not going to adhere to a lot of people, but that'll make you want to watch him.
I don't mind it on the ring walk. I don't like it in the ring.
Yeah, I don't like it in the ring.
I really don't like it in the ring.
But that's his thing.
But yeah, and that's something that he did in the amateurs. It's not a new thing that he's just devised for TV. That is that is who he is.
And it's not a new thing as well. Naz used to do it, and I hated it. And I was always a fan of watching Naz box. Yeah. But I wasn't a fan of that. His ability, like the same with Ben. I'm not a fan of that, but I'm a fan of his ability, his potential. You can see his potential. Potential's endless. But he needs to be active. Like Andy says, he needs to be really active as much as now, and then slowly stepping him up. Or I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. How old is he? Mid-20s.
Just like 26.
Okay, you got loads of time inside there, but I mean loads of time. But that loads of time will also be. Hang on a minute. You better get a move on. So I think
when was the Olympics? Was in
2021.
July? Was it July?
21,
yeah, late July, early August.
Yeah. So we're 2.5 years on from that now.
Okay, yeah, well you got 18 months in a world title.
Took a little bit of time to get the right deal. Look, I like you, Andy. I don't know the ins and outs of the deal. I'm sure he's been looked after.
But that's important for him when he turns pro to get that first deal first, because if you're going to get a lump of cash first, which I hope he did, then that's important because your career could be over tomorrow. So I think what Andy's saying spot on. If you're getting paid loads of money for a fight, but you want to fight regular and they can't afford it, for the big gain at the end, you should say, yeah, no, I'll cut that in half even if you give me more fights. And as long as my team get the okay and the opponent and all that shit, and then we'll go on. Because in the end, you're going to get to that level, the highest level quicker, which you're sure you're going to get to. Then there's huge money because you pay per view.
You've got to think about the end game, haven't
you?
But
also, you've got to think, if that money's there, take the money while it's there.
Yeah.
It's a fair. I had a chat with this with who gives a shit who it was, but with Joshua Buatsi about the yard fight. Would you take the yard fight or would you take a world title shot? And I said, if I was you, I'd take the world title shot. But if I was your manager, I'd say take the yard money because that'd be more money. If that was more money, take the money. But as a boxer, I say take the world title shot. So you need to get that balance there. But if he's going to reach his potential, he needs to be really active. And also to sell him as a commercial product, you've got to just see him constantly in your face. Every show he should be on. I said that about Lauren Price as well. You've got to sell her. She's an Olympic gold medalist. And just put her on every show. Put him so you just like every time you put on Sky Boxing. Oh, Ben Whittaker's on. He's almost goes a natural process.
That's what we're doing with Atalma. And I know obviously Atalma is a heavyweight and those rounds can go quicker and what have you, but he's boxed 7 times this year.
But Ben Whittaker, because of his attitude and those are flamboyant he is, and the Olympic pedigree, he has the potential to be a pay-per-view star quite quickly. So, like more than any other on that roster, maybe because of that. So, he's not a heavyweight. But he might break, and not every, there's very few fighters a pay-per-view below the heavyweight division, but he might be one of those who potentially is. But not if he's boxing once every 6 months or whatever it is. That's no good. Because is he any good, this kid? Should we watch him again? That's what happens. People like comfort. That's not a word. Like regularity,
consistency.
Consistency.
There you go, Barry. We got you.
They like that. So you get him to make him a fan favourite just by watching him. You're going to watch him every time. Can I say that again in 5 different ways? Yeah, that's it.
But what's good about him too, though, is that I mean, last time we saw him was in Birmingham at the start of May, and I think I might have said this on the pod before, but his room was 2 doors down from mine, and after his fight, I had quite a long chat with him. I was just coming back, and he was standing in the corridor talking to his opponent's training team actually, and the persona is the persona, but he's a realist. Like, he knows what boxing is. He doesn't think that he can't get clipped. He doesn't think that he can't get knocked out if he gets hit with one he doesn't see. He doesn't think any of that. He, like, not all fighters, but some fighters do. He has drills that he does to replicate what to do when you get knocked down, things like that. And you might look at someone like him and feel like he wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because
I'm shocked.
it's absolutely impossible that anyone could ever knock me down. But he doesn't think that.
Might say that in an interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He may well say that, but he doesn't actually think that. And that is a good thing.
And he is, you'll know better than me from watching him in the amateurs, but like the bits of him that I did see in the amateurs, I'm amateur boxing casual, like to watch all the big tournaments, and then that's it.
But everyone's like that, really.
Yeah, pretty well, apart from him.
Only because he's getting paid. No, I'm joking.
But he
largely true.
The kind of the point I was going to make is obviously that he's boxed
fair.
at a very, very high level and had a lot of success, and he has shown plenty of balls when he's had to as well. Always go back to, so he boxed Kizhniak, and you'll know what year it was. It was in the Europeans, and it was like 2016 or 17.
That could have been 17, yeah.
Yeah, it went in 17, and he was 18 and
Yeah.
boxed Kizhniak.
Yeah.
And Kizhniak, for people who have not watched him, go and watch him, is an absolute animal of a Ukrainian.
When he came through, yeah, exactly. That year, 2017, he got to the quarterfinals. I'm pretty sure that year. I went to that tournament, but I didn't do that fight. And yeah, he was 19 at that point, I think, and he was reaching the last 8 at the European Championships, which is in Kharkiv in Ukraine, and then at the World Championships in Hamburg. To get to the last 8, like the Europeans, is pretty amazing. And but in almost your first season as a senior, to do it in the World Championships as well, so those results for me were kind of almost as impressive as the medals that he won. So he had a really, really good amateur career, really good. And I always thought that win in the Olympics against Kataev, who's a very pro-style
destroyer,
Beterbiev kind of look-alike, with essentially one arm. That was it was close. That was a big
real
win.
walking on tightrope that was, wasn't it?
But that's why. So, like when a guy turns pro, a boxer when a boxer turns pro, sometimes you're not sure if they got the minerals, people have to say, don't they? You're not sure. But let's say Joe Kazak. But no, they fed him a load of people he could have beat easily early, because as an amateur he proved he had tough advert. He proved he could battle through. So once you know you got a boxer, I know the amateur sports are not as physically tough as it used to be. I mean, it's technically a lot more difficult, I would say, but it's not physically as tough because the gloves are different, the rounds are different, and all that. So. And you can get away with more. The standing counts now, you fart in the corner, you get a standing count, don't you?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean as much anymore as it used to mean. But I mean, then you literally have to get almost dropped to get a standing count. So they're not as physically as tough. So you don't always have to. You might have to work hard at the fight, but very few fights are really attritional fights. Though watching the Commonwealth Games, the light heavyweight division, that was what I'm saying is a load of bollocks. That was really tough, but usually not. So you're maybe not quite sure with this new amateur breed if they are as skillful as they are they tough? But if you say about Ben, he's already proved that.
Yeah.
So now you don't have to like give him those tests like you might have had someone else, because you know he's going to be like they did the same with Kazak. They knew he was tough when he really didn't have to do it, so they could feed him a load of people, just to get him out there to show people, oh, this is this beautiful kid who's going to be a brilliant fighter. And do it with him then. No, that's even makes it more important to fight it more regular. Yeah, if we know he's tough as well, we know what he's like when he's backs into the wall. He will grind. Not over the long distance yet. We don't know about that, but we know he can grind when he's hurt or when he's tired.
In high pressure moments, like the Kataev fight, which is Olympic medal on the line.
Yeah, and he's that
but it's the physical thing for me, not the mental thing. Yeah. All those top amateurs, they got the mental aptitude to get through those difficult moments, like a moment when you know I gotta win this, but that's the physical battle. But if he's proved that, then you don't need to put that test at him. Like I said about Adam Azim, give him a little test, because we're not quite sure if you can cope with the pressure and the weight and the strength of people. But if this kid can, then just keep fighting him all the time. Now it must be more important. It don't matter who he fights against. Just make him smash people to pieces in front of everyone, and then all of a sudden just step him up like they did with the other fighters. My mate from Newbridge. That's easy, didn't he? Obviously, they checked him for British title, then they checked him for the world title.
I think that's what they feel they can do with him. I know that he was supposed. The idea was that he would box in Wolverhampton, obviously, because that's where he's from. As I understand it, I am guessing, but I'm almost sure I'm right, that next year, before too long, like quite soon next year, they'll go back to Wolverhampton again with him headlining or very near the top of the bill, or the show being sold around him, because that is the way to do it, isn't it? You put these people on huge shows like they did in Saudi, and that's great, and you gather them experience that way, but you want to create a fortress for them, don't you? Whereby you can take them to their hometown, get a good crowd. Hopefully they'll outgrow it, in an ideal world, but you want that is a factor.
Building that home base.
I agree with that normally, but I think when you have an Olympian, I know you did with the Olympic gold, but when you have an Olympian like that, I almost think he belongs to the country. So you share him. Mix and match it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so Amir Khan went every city, didn't he? I know that
Joshua did the same.
And I think because they're different, you're promoting them different, because they had that massive platform in the Olympic final, for God's sake. So we got that massive, and with him you do that, but you put him higher up the bill, so he's chief support very quickly. Yeah, and that sort of thing. I think.
Who knows? I think, like you mentioned about the injury that he had in the Olympics, by all accounts, that was the same injury that ended up flaring up after the Peter Nosic fight, after he'd had a couple of fights. If it wasn't for that, then he could have been on the way to doing all of these things now.
Yeah. Oh no, but actually, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody.
No, for sure. I think, like, we're
ideally,
kind of the caveat for this is like it is with us with all of them. It's almost a sort of the better the fighter, the more critical that we are. You know, again, we always
someone you've got real high hopes for, and you kind of expect a lot, and it looks like they really could be the goods. I thought it was a good fight for him in Birmingham. I thought that was a good fight for him. Dan Aziz was up there with us, and they get Ben in the studio, and he talks to Dan Aziz about, you're just keeping my belts warm and all this kind of stuff. But he made, it's a reasonable point that it's a valid, maybe valid's not the right word, but what he needs to do is kick on fast enough that those guys are reachable sooner rather than later. Well, because that's perfect, isn't it? With these British guys at the top level, there's Yard and there's Boazzi and there's Aziz and there's Craig Richards, and you want to be able to catch those guys before they've gone.
And when he says that to him, not only do we believe it, they believe it. Yeah. Oh yeah, actually, this kid is on my tail. Yeah. Not just he's a real talented kid, but he's way behind us just at the minute. You got to go. Yeah.
Because if it takes him too long to get there, and by the time he gets there, the people he's fighting are not those guys, and they're people who are basically unknown to a British audience, that makes your job just that bit harder then, doesn't it?
Imagine he misses the boat for all of those great potential domestic fights.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good.
But he might leapfrog all that. I mean, they're all sort of world coast.
Or he might step up to one of them, and it turns out he's not up to it.
Yeah.
We don't know, do we?
Yeah, that's never happened before, have it?
but I think 2024 is the year that we need to see. We need to see some progress in the career.
Is the key for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. Just busy, just getting him out regularly against whatever opposition. At the minute, we're just not seing him regularly enough.
I saw Shakan Pitters at that Wolverhampton show at ringside.
Big fight in the Midlands.
With him. Big fight in the Midlands.
Really big fight in the Midlands. Well, they were talking about Ricky Summers for a little while, weren't they?
That was a plan. But I think Queensberry got him for Anthony Yard. That didn't end up happening in the end, did it? But
so he's still available.
Yeah.
There we go.
He's still English champion, I think.
Not sure.
He certainly was.
I know there was talks of Michael Stevenson as well, who's the Midlands champion, but they've ended up on Stephen Leonetti. Right, okay, that's all we've got time for the preview show today. Beforehand, we're in great form at the minute, so we're going to go around and do some predictions. Right, Andy, you first.
We should all wear silly hats for this prediction.
We should do, yeah.
Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis this weekend.
You're thinking what you really think, and then maybe you should go the other way.
You see, that's the problem. Is like when you start. I'm a Prograis fan. I always have been. I just really like watching him, but I do think that Haney is that guy who will keep his composure have the skills to beat him, basically. So I'll say Haney points.
Yeah, I think I said that 3 hours ago when we started the process. But yeah, I think Haney points as well. In stages, it'd be a difficult fight for him, but ultimately, I think he wins relatively wide.
Yeah, I agree. Very similar. I think.
Oh,
I think there might. Yeah, there's always a danger.
Congratulations, Regis.
When we're all on the same.
Don't take
page,
any comfort in us all agreeing.
Well, I spoke to Nathan Heaney.
A spectacular knockout there, Regis. Well done.
Heaney came in and did the George Groves Boxing Club in here, and I sort of caught him on the way out. And, oh, mate, well done. I was like, yeah, nobody thought I was going to win. I was like, yeah, none of us did. Like, somebody like him is great because he can get.
No, he gets it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he loves it. He's like, yeah, no, he's the nicest man in the world.
It's weird about things. Like, I always say it's never personal. But my missus made the point. Yeah, it's personal to them because it's about them. But I go. And this is what you can't be friends with fighters.
And also, it's the good thing about us is that we're all more than happy to stick our hands up and admit, and we kind of, it's like a disclaimer that none of us actually know what we're talking about. So it's fine. We can hold our hands up and we're all good. But anyway, so we're all three on the same page, worryingly, for the first fight. Andy, Chris Billam-Smith versus Mateusz Masternak.
I think Billam-Smith stoppage. I think Billam-Smith stoppage around kind of 9 or 10, because I feel like Masternak will just give it everything he's got, and that's how it'll end for that reason. I think Billam-Smith will have too much for him.
Barry?
Yeah, again, I said that, didn't I?
Yeah.
I think.
We could have done it without him. Just after the first 10 minutes, got rid of him.
Fucking hell. Same money, innit? 50p and a banana. Oh, no. I think he stops. I think it's late, like 10 to 12 or something like that. I think he stops him.
We're going to go Billam-Smith points. Yeah. I think Masternak long enough in the tooth, tough enough.
He's definitely tough enough to
awkward,
grit it out.
Ungainly,
I just think in this fight more than maybe than any other he's had because of the circumstances, he might just keep swinging until he goes down.
They had a very similar sort of fight that Billam-Smith had with Armen Jojai.
Yeah. I hope so.
Jojai came out and was very, very lively for the first 3 or 4 rounds with Masternak, and Masternak put him away. Just the same thing that happened with Chris Billam-Smith. I'm expecting a good fight.
I think it'd be a really good fight. It'd be a tough fight.
Absolutely. That's all we have time for on today's episode of The Boxing Show. Don't forget to let us know in the comments who you think is going to win this weekend. Will it be Devin Haney or Regis Prograis? Will it be Chris Billam-Smith or Mateusz Masternak? Let us know in the comments, and we will catch up with you next time.